Welcome to Born to be Barefoot. I'm your host, Stuart Gordon, with my co-host, Katie Suyuki. Welcome to our Born to be Barefoot podcast. Our latest edition features a fantastic gentleman from San Antonio in Texas, whose name is Hernan Rozemberg. Now, I'm going to start this off with the big guns. 45 years old, 2 hours, 40 minutes and 16 seconds for a marathon. Hernan, that's not bad.
Hello. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me. Yeah, appreciate that. I feel like that was a lifetime ago. It was just 4 years ago. I'm 49 now, but training-wise and everything does feel like a lifetime ago. And I was actually trying to break 240 that day and just missed it. Missed it.
That's disastrous. Massive missing out by 16 seconds, yeah. All you needed to do was a sprint finish, really.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
But believe me, the heart was there, and I was yelling on my legs that just couldn't go fast enough.
That was that wading through treacle moment, was it? Or through maple syrup, whichever works in whichever continent. Yeah. Oh,
worst thing is, I had two rivals, if you will, friendly rivals that I had ditched behind, and both passed me within the last couple of miles, and they both broke 240, and I did it. But so it goes.
And then we're really pleased to have you on. What we love hearing about is stories of how you came into running. Now, we know from your little bio that you actually started quite late as a runner. So can you give us a bit of background? Katie, my co-host, is here. Katie, say hi.
Hello, Hernan. I'm here from New Zealand.
Hi, Katie. Yeah, see, we're all over the world here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So, yeah, you started late. Tell us about that. So you weren't a school runner or a young guy at college running. So give us some background on that. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I kind of wish I would have, but yeah, I tell that story all the time. Yeah, kind of like a late bloomer, I guess, of sorts. I was always pretty athletic, so I did sports probably like, a lot of other kids, soccer, baseball, basketball. The story that I like to tell is whenever it was 7th or 8th grade in middle school, whenever they make you run 4 laps around the track, which is a mile, I have this recollection of all the fast kids, dashing out, like sprinting it, and they're dying by the second lap. And all I know is I'm coming in at the last lap, for the mile, and nobody's around me. I have no idea what my time was. I have no idea what happened. I just wish between myself and the coach, somebody would have said, hey, try out for cross country or try out for track. But that conversation never happened. So I actually didn't get into running until college, actually, and very little at that. It was actually my junior year study abroad. And tell me if I'm rambling too much, but I studied abroad in West Africa, in Senegal. And transportation there is a little bit different from what we're used to in the first world. So from the house to the university, we had to walk 30 to 45 minutes. And then to work out, there was a kind of open workout area at the beach. It was also about 30, 45 minutes. So instead of walking, I just started running. And as far as I can remember, that was my first time that I actually ran. And then after coming back and having a first job after college, there was a veteran marathon runner at my first job. And I started, kind of listening to him and talking to him a little bit. And he started training me a little bit. And I just did some 5Ks and 10Ks on my own, not training, not knowing much other than what he was telling me. So it wasn't until I would say my late 20s when I decided to finally get a little bit more dedicated about it. And I started training for my first marathon. So that was about 20 years ago, and since then it's been very consistent. But yeah, that's when I started. Now, what I would consider fairly consistent, about 20 years ago or so. Wow,
that's great. I mean, I know we're going slightly off piste here straight away, but what were you studying in Senegal?
It's an exchange program, right? So there was 3 different American universities that had exchange programs there. So my area of study in general was political science, but the university ended up being shut down half the year. So I ended up learning a lot more about culture and local language, while the university was shut down.
World skills rather than.
It was still an incredible experience. I wouldn't give it up for anything.
That's amazing. So when you started getting going, as you say, in your late 20s, did you take on a coach? Did you seek out a coach? Did you think, I know I've got this baseline of talent. It was there. It's been lurking in the background. I need to develop this. How am I going to develop it? How did you go about that?
No, not right away. I am very like studious by nature. Most of my career, was spent in journalism, professionally. So I like to dig around and research and stuff. So that came by naturally. So I did a lot of research, and just kind of started on my own. And all I was thinking to do is like fulfill like what become a goal of doing one marathon, and that'll be it, and maybe tell my grandchildren about it someday, and I didn't even really focus on time. It was just about, I guess just training so I could finish and not die, it's basically what I was trying to do. And that was it when I lived in Arizona. And about halfway through the training on that, I did end up running into some folks that were part of a running club that had coaches. And I ended up kind of joining them and talking to the coaches, and I liked what they had to say. So I guess that was my first, encounter with like a coaching situation. Very funny anecdote about that. This is Arizona, right? So it's the desert, extremely hot. And I remember the coach asking me just in general about my background and what I had done for training. And I had gone up to like a 16 miler there, which is the longest I had ever done. And she asked me, what was my hydration plan during that run? And I said, I have no idea what you're talking about right now. What hydrate what? I mean, I don't know what you mean. Oh, okay. Well, water, water, Gatorade. What were you drinking? I said, I didn't drink. She said, you just did a 16 miler in the Arizona heat and you didn't even drink a drop of water. I said, no, is that bad? She said, yes, that's very bad. That's extremely bad. You're lucky you're alive. I said, oh, wow. Okay. So, first learn lesson there, right? So, yeah. So after that, I did join that club, which is still around, called Race Lab. And I got some great coaching through there. And they're the ones that took me through that first marathon. And after completing that is when the coach actually told me, I told you had some talent, and I'm telling you, you're probably going to end up doing more. And I said, well, I thought I was just going to do one, but you're right. I think I'm getting the bug. And that was history right there, because I did get the bug. It hasn't left me since.
Mm. I find that fascinating, that bug. Personally, it's never got me for long distance running. I was sprinter.
I'd have to agree with that there.
Yeah, you're the same, Katie, are you?
Yeah. No, I
running
can't.
For me, I don't know you, but it was always a means to an end. We had to do loads and loads of running as part of training for football or soccer, in pre-season and for other sports. But for me, the notion of actually going out and running a marathon, I kept waiting for the London Sprint to come out. one sort of lap across London Bridge or something like that. I'd have been in for that one. Yeah. So, you must have done loads of running, Katie, as part of training as well, for your athletic stuff.
Well, I ran for, some training. I mean, I had like really good coaches of like, they're like, your whole sport happens in under a minute. So why would you run for longer than like 5 was kind of their thing. And I was like, yeah, right. Yeah, I agree with that. But no, I ran cross country when I was a kid, and I was like, junior Metro Toronto junior champion once.
Wow.
But yeah, I don't know. Anything over like 5-6K, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, I'm done.
But it's an interesting one, isn't it? And for you, how much of it is a psychological thing? Does it give you an outlet for life, or for stress, or for?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I think that was probably why I've stuck with it so long. It's most definitely a way of life. My dream is, if I'm going to go out, is probably to go out on a run. Whenever life is done for me, so yeah, it's completely a way of life. Impacted everything else around my life, as probably, kind of stories you guys have probably heard about dedicated runners, so, for example, I'm going to have a family get together now at the end of the year, and everybody is already aware. I was like, okay, so he's not going to be around for breakfast because he's probably still going to be out there doing his run, so we'll welcome him later. They have gotten used to it, so yeah, most definitely a psychological boost, even when I'm down, when I've been injured and, not able to, train like I want to, as long as I'm still able to get out there, I survive. The worst part has ever been when I've had injuries that completely have sidelined me. It hasn't been that much, but yeah, I'm miserable like that. Can't do it.
Oh yeah, agreed. I think we all are when we get injured, It's never easy being injured. And Stuart, you see a lot of us, right?
My job, Hernan, is to treat people with injuries, sports injuries, general backaches, neck aches, whatever.
Yeah.
And that frustration factor for people when they can't go and run. And I'm constantly having conversation. Somebody will come and see me and say, I've got a problem with my Achilles or whatever it is. Is it okay to keep playing or to keep training or to keep running? And sometimes you have to say, actually, no. Not just yet. And oh my goodness, there's a young woman at the moment who's a fantastic athlete, and I've had to sort of wind her back. And it's finding then again, and this is an interesting one for you. So when you've been injured, and you can't necessarily put in the miles or go out and run at all, what have you found ways to keep yourself motivated, to keep yourself focused, or just sane? Because this is a common thing for lots and lots of people out there running. So what's your top tip for avoiding going mad when you're injured?
Absolutely, yeah. So I mean, trying to avoid not being able to run at all is I guess what I've done the most. But during the last couple of years, when I've had the longest bout I had with plantar fasciitis, which actually led me to encounter this great product that we're talking about today. I actually decided on my own, which is no easy decision, after going back and forth and trying to come back probably like 5 or 6 times to no avail, to really sit out for an extended period of time. So I decided to sit out for 6 months and instead take up cycling. I've always enjoyed just very recreational cycling, here and there, but I decided to take it up on a more steady basis so I could, survive not running. And I actually didn't do bad in cycling. I have a lot of friends that are triathletes or cyclists, and I would go out with them, and I would hold my own. And they're like, "Where'd this guy come from? Aren't you a runner?" And I guess they have seen that the talented long distance runners can actually make that transition fairly well, because I guess we got the engine, we just don't have the experience. But I did get into it, but I mean, I couldn't wait until I could get back to my 2 feet, and I'm back on 2 feet.
Interesting, yeah. Because I suppose the thing with cycling is you've got to go a long way to expend the same amount of energy you would do doing a 10-mile training run or a 15-mile training.
And that takes up a lot of I remember going on my first, I was building up, right? So I was doing 60, 70, 80 miles, trying to get to that first century, as they call it, the 100 miles. And it was such a different mindset, because I mean, they're still pretty active and hardcore cyclists, but they take a 20-minute break to eat some tacos. And I'm saying, what? You can't just stop. What are you doing? And they say, no, you need the fuel. We're going to be out here 5, 6, 7 hours. You can't just go just on gels. I said, oh, wow. Okay. It's just a different world to me, just stopping altogether like that. But yeah, we were out there.
Were they hydrating? They were hydrating, I'm guessing.
Yes.
The hydration thing kills me, because like my husband will go and he'll work, like he does construction, right? He's building houses, and he goes all day without drinking anything. And I'm just like, how do you even like function? I mean, you're running like really far, but I'm like, I don't know if it's just like a guy thing. Like, I don't know, Stuart, is your wife telling you all the time to like drink water? You're like, I got a headache. She's like, drink some water.
I don't get headaches. I drink beer or wine. No, the water, the hydration thing is a conversation I have every day with clients. And, some people are drinking too much and diluting their mineral balance. One chap fairly recently is a 82-year-old guy. And he was carted off. He had a bit of a problem, and transpired that he was drinking too much water. And
oh wow,
sodium levels and potassium levels were being diluted. So, we have to. The discussion is there, isn't it, about this 8 liters? What it used to be 8 glasses of water a day, or 2 liters of water a day, or whatever.
Right.
It is.
Yeah,
a lot of those studies weren't really based on anything particularly scientific. It was too generalized. The control groups weren't, adequately prepared. So I think the view on the need, or not that obviously there is a need to hydrate, you must hydrate, but the amount of hydration has been sort of slightly curtailed a little bit, and more suited to what you're actually doing. And obviously if you're running in the Arizona desert, then it's not a bad idea to hydrate. But there's a great, I'm guessing you've read Born to Run.
Oh yes, I remember that. Yep. When it came out,
there's a story in there, which was one of my favorite ones from that book, was the guy who was running that 100 mile or 120 miler across the Arizona desert. And I can't remember the guy's name, but he used to have his support team place a coffin beside the road full of cool water. So what he would do, he would leap into it, sort of get out in front, leap into the coffin and sort of lie in it to cool down. And then one of his team would give him a tap when the next competitor was coming along, sort of getting level with the coffin, and he would leap out of the coffin and start chasing them up the road.
I don't remember that anecdote. Wow.
I'm sure, unless I'm making it up completely, I'm pretty sure that was in the book.
Wow.
A guy Barefoot who ran it barefoot as well. But yeah, so that's a different kind of hydration. But anyway, we digress. So going back to your injuries. So you've alluded to some plantar fasciitis problems, and quite a lot from the sound of it. So just give us a little bit of background on that, Hernan.
Yeah, sure. So but by now I think in this a little over 20 years I've probably had every running injury possible. So as a coach, I think that becomes very useful. When I'm trying to have folks not go through what I've gone. So kind of learn lessons. But yeah, that plantar, that was about 2 or 3 years ago, and it just would not go away. Again, I had done a lot of research. I had a lot of experience. So, obviously I was trying to be smart about it and do everything possible on my own, and then getting some PT. The PT referred me to a podiatrist. I even had platelet injection. I had never had that before. None of that did it. None of that. So some would make it better, but nothing would make it go away. So it's probably the closest that I come to just being ready to almost throw in the towel, because it was just incessant. It wouldn't go away. So it wasn't until the PT that I had actually had mentioned Barefoot Science, but at that time, I think I was just so stressed and kind of depressed and stuff that I really was say, okay, I don't even want to try anything else. It's just like, I've tried everything. So I came back full circle on that and ordered a pair and started going through the process of it. And I was knocking on wood every day because I said, is this really happening? Especially me, because I don't think I've mentioned this part. I've had flat feet my entire life. And, and this probably contributed to it. I think I've always had, orthotics since I was a little kid, firm orthotics, and I remember trying to, just walk or run, without orthotics. And I was would run into a lot of pain because obviously, that I had accustomed my feet to that, that kind of, Band-Aid, which obviously didn't go to the roots of the issue. So, just I would say about 6 weeks into using the Barefoot Science inserts, I started feeling better, and I couldn't believe it. I said, okay, something's going to happen. This can't stay like this, But I just stuck with it, and it just kept improving, and very gradual, just stuck with it. Now it's been about a couple of years, and I have no plantar issues at all, and that's how this whole connection happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So it's interesting. So 6 weeks in, roughly level 3. So we've got, for those people who aren't fully familiar, obviously the podcast is sponsored by this fantastic company, Barefoot Science, and
right.
Their insoles have these progressive levels of stimulus that go in underneath the insole to fire up the proprioceptive nerves. Now,
right.
I've found as a therapist prescribing them to people that it's about level 3, which is when things really start to change. And was that the case for you?
I think so. Yes, I think that's about right, because I think I was taking, because it's been a while now, but I think I was taking about a couple of weeks in between each level, So about 6-8 weeks into it, I think you're right. I think I was about 3, maybe 3 or 4, not more than that for sure. Right. And I remember, I have to say this because I make a joke out of it. When I first got it, I said, what did I just, I mean, being completely honest with you here, I said, what did I just waste my money with? There's flimsy things because I'm used to the orthotics, and I'm thinking that's what's going to help me. I say, this flimsy thing with this dome in the middle, this is not going to do anything for me. So, I mean, I've probably never been proven so wrong, happily so, in my entire life.
Oh, we're very happy as well, yeah. Katie went through that process. I've been through that process. Yours was, you didn't have plantar fasciitis, did you, Katie? But you were, was there a change point for you with your injuries?
I think it was more of the stimulation that I was sought after.
Mm-hmm.
That like proprioceptive response that you get from the bottom of your feet. Like it just really turned my feet on and I became more aware of them. And so with that was when I was running was, where am I? And I mean, I got some really good resources to talk to, who's the doctor from the Born to be Barefoot. Oh my gosh, you mentioned his book earlier, Stuart. Anyways, I got to do running clinics with him and he taught me all this other stuff as well. So it was a few different components of more knowledge and getting to wear the product more that I just got hooked to. Yeah, the stimulation. Like once you get to level 7, you're kind of like, oh, is there like level 8? Like, are you guys going to come out with level 8? Because you really do like it. But I mean, I doesn't say that it didn't prevent anything because I did start running more. And I used to get patella like being pulled over because patella tracking problems because my IT bands were so tight from snowboarding and yeah, it's all seemed to be happy feet, happy legs after. So yeah, I agree.
It's interesting though because for me, after kind of trial and error, I actually discovered that level 7 was not the best for me because I started doing more and more training, and I started feeling some pain, some discomfort. This is also all after wearing them for a while and starting, ramping up my training, and I try to dial it back to see, if that would do anything. And actually discovered that level 5 or 6 seemed to be like a sweet spot for me. I don't know if, everybody's different, obviously, but so I've just stuck with that. Oh, yeah? I
think that's common too, yeah. And like, did you like fully dive in? Like when you got them, did you put them in all of your shoes, your casuals and trainings, or was it just your trainers at first?
No. I was wearing them everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
And I recommend that to folks, so, I mean, because I guess that's just what worked for me, so your feet get more used to it. Because I think if you put it just in your running shoes, for me, it's going to take longer for you to get used to them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I had a coach, and so for snowboarding, we tune our boards to go fast, right? It's like the whole. If you guys don't know, they put wax on it, blah blah blah, right? And I had a trainer. Like I used to be like, oh no, don't use that wax. Like save the fast wax for competition day because, I'll need it for competition day. And this coach was like, no, we put fast wax on our board every day. Meaning that, you don't change variables just because it's a contest or something like that. You just keep up you continue whatever your norm is. Right. So I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's why you're my coach.
I think there's a really interesting, it's just made me think of something. There's a lot of people now who got all excited about these carbon fiber inserts in running shoes, but they're incredibly expensive. And I think the suggestion is you get about 350 miles out of them. So I've got a lot of people who come to see me who are marathon runners and such like, and they're only wearing them to compete in.
Right.
So they're training in there every day, other trainers to train in, and then they're going out and sticking these, whatever the brand is with the carbon fiber in, and there's a lot of them obviously out there now. And it worries me because I got a feeling that they're just not, their bodies aren't going to be used to coping with that additional spring or whatever it gives. But actually, what I've also done is turn it around and say, well, look, guys, we have in our feet these things called muscles. And when they perform really well, their job is to provide us with that recoil that we need for propulsion, for running. And anyway, that's their job. So what about training those muscles to do their job better? And that's what the insoles do. And with plantar fasciitis, of course, almost all the research now is coming out is saying it's about the muscles inside the foot, there are 20 muscles there that have become weak. Now, you having flat feet was kind of a bit of a clue that there were obviously some weak muscles there, but it's not necessarily the case, because just because you've got a flat foot doesn't mean you've got weak muscles, but they may not be providing both stretch and recoil.
Yeah.
They might only be strong in that stretch position, not contracting to bring you back into an arch position to create the stretch, to create the recoil. So that's what the insoles will have done for you. They'll have given your foot that stimulus to bring the tone back in. So as your foot's landing, it's landing with a slight arch to it, probably. Have you noticed if you actually developed arches?
I haven't been. I'm not completely flat foot. I mean, I call myself flat foot, but I've been told, that I have a slight arch. I mean, to me, it's hard to believe, but yeah.
Yeah. So that's the whole point. We want that arch to start when your foot lands, stretch, recoil, and that's the whole basis what the insoles will do, and that is what seems to be the key to either preventing or resolving plantar fasciitis, is to do that. Of course, the insoles do it every single step. So somebody can go along and do some foot strengthening exercises, and absolutely we'd advocate that as well. But why would you not put something in your shoe that's going to do those exercises for you every single step you take? And that's, to me, that's such a logical way. And obviously you did that. Intuitively, you just went with it, and you've obviously so. I mean, you wear them every run, every race.
Oh yeah, since I started wearing them, it's like part of me. I mean, like whatever shoe I'm wearing, I've gone through several pairs. I know this kind of like, it seems like an unwritten rule. When do you switch? But I mean, after a while, they just seem so worn. Because I use them, on everything every day. That I've had to recycle probably maybe more than other people. But yeah, I mean, I can't think of going back to anything else. I couldn't think of that if it's for me.
So what's coming up for you next? What have you got lined up?
Well, if you mean in terms of training, I've actually got a non-running related injury right now that's going to set me back for a while. I have a hernia. I've never had that in my whole life. So it looks like, I'm probably looking at a surgery with that at some point. It's what the surgeon has told me, that there's no other way around that. So I was in between cycles. Anyways, as I start getting up there more and more with age, I've also had to, cope with that. I mean, I usually still have a competitive side in me, so if I'm racing, I usually try to at least take the masters category or come in as high as I can on the masters category. And I don't know if I'll be able to come back to the full, I mean, I might be done with that, because I don't know if I'd be able to put a training cycle to try to break 240 again, but I'm still holding on to a dream of my PR in the half marathon, which is a 1:15, and I've come very close, but I haven't gotten there. It's still evading me. So that's the one thing I still would like to accomplish if I can.
So for the sort of the running techies amongst us, if you're going to aim for that half marathon, are you going to change the way you train, do more speed work or strength work, or does that already form a part of your training?
I think it's part of my training. I think the main difference, if you train for a half or the full, is the level of volume, you put into it, as well, not just in general, but also, again, as you're getting older and getting to a master's category, and you're still trying to remain competitive, you have to be really careful. I mean, like the number one thing for me has been recovery at this point in my running life. Recovery is the most important thing. If you don't, as a master's runner, if you're trying to stay competitive and you don't recover properly and smartly and strategically, you're bound for bad times.
And then when you say recovery, like what does that model look like to you?
So, it can be anything from like fully taking a full rest day, like no activity at all, or a cross training day, possibly. So not running, but doing some other activity, to keep your heart rate going and the legs warm and such. It could be anything like cycling. It could be, swimming. It could be hiking, walking, and anything like that. But even then, in general, I would keep it to like a light to moderate effort, depending on your training that you're doing, right? But so you're able to recover, especially if the next day you're going to go back out and do a quality day, right? A speed day, so your legs can get back into it again and try to avoid injury.
But like, what about like ice baths or compression suits or anything? Are you into any like things like that? Ice baths are such the rave these days.
Yeah, I ice regularly, and I'm a bit old school about that. I mean, I'll use the ice bath itself. I'll only will do definitely after a hard long race or like a really hard long run. Maybe 22 plus miles. With some quality stuff in there. But otherwise, I will alternate between in terms of icing. For the inflammation, I will use ice pack, but also. You guys know the trick of the Dixie cups, the little water cups. You fill them up with water and put them in the fridge, and they freeze. Like a little pop, exactly. Yes. And then you peel off the top of it, and you directly apply the ice to the area. I was taught that.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Okay, so you take the Dixie cup, you fill it with water, you freeze it,
right,
and then it's like almost one of those old school like. That's awesome.
It's an ice stick, basically, and you just and you just apply directly to the area that you want to ice. And it's actually better than the ice pack because you're applying directly to the area. I was taught that early on. I know that it's very old school, but it works.
Yeah, I've had for 30 years. My freezer has had a little tray of those in them.
There you go. See,
yeah, and it actually as a therapist treating people. If you want to incorporate that into a 45-minute treatment or a half an hour treatment, it's very effective because you'd only need to do it for 5 minutes compared to an ice pack for 15 minutes, for instance.
Right. Right.
And you get the benefit of the massage because you would massage again, keep the ice cup moving and generate that beneficial aspect to it as well. So it's dual purpose.
And for the bottom half of the legs, anything from obviously the feet up to the knee. I would fill up a large bucket with cold water and pour some ice in there, and then put the leg right in there, and keep it there. In the beginning, when I first started doing it, it was so painful that I couldn't hold it for more than a few minutes. But then your body adjusts, So I learned to keep it up to like 50 to 20 minutes, and I think that really helped with the inflammation.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. And what do you have like a support team that helps you? With it, like some therapists that you go to, another coach, family.
Yeah. So some folks in kind of like your established circle, right? And as a coach, I recommend that to the people that I'm helping. Like build yourself a support circle, as you say. Even if it's just like informally. So yeah, I have a massage therapist that I regularly go to, and she's great. She's an ultra runner herself, so I don't need to explain a lot of stuff to her, as opposed to other massage therapists I've had who think I'm completely nuts. She's the one running 100 miles, so I'm the one thinking she's nuts. Because I haven't gone to that. I've been told I need to go to the ultra level. I just haven't gone there. But yeah, so massage therapist, PT. So yeah, folks, and yes, definitely, folks with a lot of experience. There's a local runner here in San Antonio. His name is Jose Iniguez. He runs now a race organizing and timing service. He's done very well with that. But back in the day, in the 90s, he was a standout runner, incredible runner. I think a marathon personal record of 2:14 or 2:16, half marathon of 1:03, 1:04. And he's just a great everyday guy, just very humble, very, very, very good guy. So to me, he's like going to the well, in terms of experience and stuff. So I'll check in with him from time to time. At one point, he was going to actually formally coach me, but he was just too busy and couldn't do it. But yeah, but you need to. I highly suggest that everybody establish that circle of support, as you mentioned, for their training endeavors.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah,
and you are coaching, right?
Yes,
Hernan. Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about your coaching group?
Sure. There's a couple of different outlets on that. So basically what happened with that is that as I gain experience, folks, at first you just start chatting with folks and, you start giving advice. And after hearing 10 times, like, wow, you know a lot about this stuff, and actually people tell me you should help people, because I hadn't really thought about that more than just, chit-chatting, but people told me like, you should really follow this up, and because you got so much great experience. But I'm one that, because I know there's a lot of coaches out there without certification, they use their experience, and that's okay. I think that you need to have both, and if you're going to do that seriously, so I said, okay, I'm going to dedicate myself to that. I decided to make it a goal, and I'm actually wearing one of the shirts now by RRCA, the Road Runners Club of America. Okay. So they have 2 levels of certification, level 1, level 2. So I'm certified in both. And just this last year, a few months ago, I decided to go for USATF, United States Track and Field. Level 1 certification. I didn't really need it, but I mean, I don't know. I see myself always as a lifelong learner, and there's always more to learn. And actually, there was a lot of very interesting stuff there, because obviously they focus on track and field, so not just running, right? All the field events and stuff, and it's very intense, even just level 1. So there was a lot of learning to be done that way. So I have those certifications. So between those 3 certifications and my 20 years plus of experience, I feel that I can help people, reach their goals. And I really take a lot of joy and pride in it. I really do. I really enjoy it. And I've really fully immersed myself into it. I know there's some coaches, I don't know, they have some training plans, some templates set, and they kind of, go off that and maybe tweak it a little bit. I can't function like that. I'm very customized, so I really spend a lot of time with each person and their running history and what they're trying to get at, and look at pacing charts and stuff, and try to lay out every single training run, as per what I think would be best for them. So it's very detailed, so I will, on every run, even if it's just a regular run, I will prescribe, a certain pace, because some coaches will say, just go out at 5K pace or 10K pace. And that really varies a lot for different people. It's not all the same. Or some folks are just not experienced enough to know where their comfort zone is to be able to determine that, so. Do
you ever use heart rate to determine their pace? Or
yes. Yeah.
They wear a monitor and.
Yeah. And some folks actually, before they come into me, actually have done their training based on heart rate. They haven't even gone by pace. So I make them switch a little bit to get accustomed to pace, but we also use heart rate to accustom that as well.
What technology are you using to give them the pace that they want? Are they monitoring it on the watch or whatever, or is it?
Yeah. So I guess that's one of the positives of going new school, right? So having a foot in old school and new school. So in the new school is right here, right on your wrist. You got an incredible computer. This is the Garmin 735. It's actually got an old one now. People have much newer ones, but so Garmin has an app. It's called the Garmin Connect app. And you also have Strava, right? So those are 2 of the main running apps that runners use. And you gather so much data from that. It's just unbelievable, but probably more than you wanted to know, So a lot of the stuff is based off that, as well as, just the running history, how they progressed, with their races. And as a coach, I use this platform that's called Final Surge. There's 2 main platforms that coaches use. I mean, there's a lot of them, but the 2 main ones are Final Surge and Training Peaks. And I've gone with Final Surge. I'm a Road Runners Club of America member, so I get a discount with that. So that helps, So, and actually, I just started that because before I was doing very old school coaching with, Excel sheets and stuff like that. Final Surge is a lot better because it works out like a digital calendar, but you can put in there every single run with recommended paces and stuff, and you can even communicate through the app as well if you want to, in terms of communication with the athletes. So I think all those tech tools are really helpful in terms of tracking progress.
Yeah, and setting up your workouts as well.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and what's kind of the age range of the people who you're coaching? Are you finding a lot more kind of older runners are coming almost back to it, or wanting to get more competitive, or is it mostly kind of a bunch of young kids?
Yeah, so a little of everything going on. I think I failed to answer your question there. So I coach individually, so like one-on-one, but I've also done a couple of training groups. So through the San Antonio Roadrunners, which is the biggest running club here in the area, which is a member of RRCA, I actually headed up their youth training group. And that was, I have to say, that was a lot of fun, but also very taxing in terms of the patience. So these are kids 7 to 12 years old. Yes. Some of them who have probably never run before in their lives. And the whole purpose of that program is in about 10 weeks, get them to race a 5K.
When they're that young, how much technique do you work on with them? Because I know that attention span and everything is quite nil for them.
Yes. And that's probably one of the biggest factors, right, as opposed to coaching an adult, right? Yeah. So that the whole basis of that program is not to be serious at all, is to make it as fun as possible to the kids. So then later in life, they can remember, if they don't get into running, they can remember at least running as a kid being fun and not like a chore or something that their parents made them do, because most kids, let's be honest, if they like sports, unfortunately, a lot of them are not going to love running in of itself. They find it boring or a chore. So our whole point with that group is to make it fun. So we do have lessons, so like proper running techniques, breathing, every time we had a meetup, it would be preceded by a little fun lesson about that, So even those lessons, though, are not meant to be like instructional, because their eyes was just roll, use real life examples, So I would tell them anecdotes from my running, and how I would, run out of breath or stuff like that, stuff they can identify with, right? And then after we do the actual training run, then we have games, like relay games and stuff like that. So they're still running, but it still makes it, again, fun. So
I'm sure a lot of adults would appreciate that sort of template too.
It might be a formula to follow for adults. You never know.
I definitely.
So yeah, I've gone from that training group 7 to 12 to anywhere in the middle. I have not done yet high school age students. So I know that gets into a world of itself, because they can get very competitive at that level. So it's been the youth group, and then maybe adults in their 20s and 30s, and even some masters runners like myself. I think a lot of masters runners tend to gravitate towards me because they told me they see me as a role model, for what they want to get to, in terms of their run goals.
For running, I'm wondering, because for snowboarding it might be different, but what age is masters for running? What's the age range?
40 plus in general. Now some people go a little bit more in detail, like 50 plus. Some people call it grandmasters.
Yeah, so one grandmasters, and they've grandmasters.
Grandmasters 50 plus, and some people call 60 plus another level. But in general, people go by 40 plus being a masters runner for the masters category in general.
And if you sign up for a race and they have classes, then it's just kind of 40 plus.
Yeah. So usually the age groups in races will run every 5 or 10 years, so 15 to 19, right. 20 to 24, 25 to 29, and you still get age groups 40 to 44, 45 to 49, that type of thing. But within that, right. After you go to 40, most races will actually give awards for the top female and male masters. Sometimes they'll do 1 or top 3, so anybody that's 40 plus. And some people say that's not fair because you can't compare a 40-year-old to a 60 or 70-year-old, but it is what it is.
In snowboarding, we call them legends. That's my trophy.
Oh, nice.
That's over 35.
Oh, over 35? Okay. Yes, I like that, legend. I like that. That sounds cooler than masters.
I've won the legends category twice now.
Nice. Yeah, that's why I mentioned at the outset that if I'm racing, usually my goal is to either be top master or at least within the top 3 masters if I can. But sometimes you get really big races where incredible runners, masters level. Even though I guess generally I'm in top 1% in the country by my race times, I still get my butt kicked every time out there at those kind of races, and that's a motivating factor for me.
You've described yourself as sub-elite, but
yes.
I don't know about that. I'd say you're pretty elite to me.
Well, I appreciate that, but I just try to keep it real at that, because to me, I don't know. To me, elite sounds like, the Kenyans, and I am not, and I will never be in that category. That's all,
Yeah, right.
What a great attitude, actually. I think it's great. One of the things I'm finding really refreshing, actually, and then listening to you, is that the absolute pleasure and joy you clearly get from doing all of this running and the coaching as well.
Yes.
Don't ever lose that.
I know. No, yes, absolutely. It's definitely a passion. You know, I mean, my family is kind of, now they're used to it, but in the beginning they were kind of like in awe. Like, are you gonna get over this running thing? Is that what's happening with this? You know, now they're like, okay, it's been too long. He's not. I mean, this is how he's gonna go. You know, so, but yeah, I mean, if I had my choice, you know, this would be kind of like a full-time career for me, you know, coaching and running maybe like rehab, a service, like all combined, you know. But I mean, at least, you know, having stepped up to be a competitive runner, and then the coaching that I'm doing and helping others really produces a lot of joy.
Mm.
Have you been able to travel at all for like travel doing races around the world or around the US?
Around the U.S. a little bit, you know, mostly on my own. Again, because I am not what I would consider elite. You know, I don't get like full coverage. The most I've gone is races to kind of give me an entry. You know, and they place me in the elite category. But if I have to travel to it, you know, that's still on my own. You know, I still have to cover that on my own. The only time when that didn't happen was actually when I lived back east, and I joined for a couple of years in the New York area, and I joined a group over there. It's called the Garden State Track Club, and it's actually Garden State, which is New Jersey, because I actually lived in New Jersey, worked in New York, lived in New Jersey. I got hooked up with this, and they're extremely competitive. You know, they win stuff at the national level all the time. So it was the only thing that they were lacking is a strong masters component. So they were really focusing on that. So I guess it was good timing for me that they discarded me at a 5K. I was new, right? I mean, I had never been there, and they hadn't seen, I guess, you know, like too many masters runners run 16, 17 minute 5K. So they're like, okay, you're coming with us.
Wow.
So yeah, they were really strengthening their masters. So I was lucky that year they had a component to run in the USATF National Club Cross Country Championship, which was not too far. It was in Pennsylvania, you know, so it wasn't too far to travel. But I mean, as part of that delegation, it was all covered as part of being part of their team. So that's probably the only time I had full coverage.
Oh, okay. What about? Why don't you explain to us one of your most epic runs?
Oh, wow.
One where you're just like, it was either environment or the training, or like you just like came out of that being like, yeah, man, this is the best.
Well, I probably have to say that one that I was just talking about has to be one of them, because I mean, again, especially not having run in high school or college. And by the way, a lot of people get shocked by that. You know, people finding out about me here, they can't believe that, because all the people that I run with, you know, are, you know, like former Division I guys, you know, because I can keep up with them. So no, the people don't believe me that I didn't run high school or college. I said I didn't. I wish I would have, you know, but I didn't. But since I got that experience, that opportunity, and I had never run cross country, that race was incredible that day, that championship that I described, because I mean, if people who run cross country know the feeling, but I had never done it. I mean, you literally line up in this huge field, right? And they had an open and masters category, and each one of them had about 600 runners. So you get this huge field, you know, and you line up all across the field, 600 runners. And for good or bad reasons, the bibs that they make you wear in the back have your age. Yeah, I don't know, you know, if it's like a target type of thing or an identified type of thing. So, and unfortunately, then I was going through some hammy issues, so I was not in my top shape. And I had told the club that, you know, but they didn't care. They said, you know, you just do your best out there, you know. So I wish I would have been in my top form, but it was such an incredible field. This rush of, you know, starting with 600 people, and I mean, they just dash off like crazy, you know, because a lot of people try to get, you know, to the front. I mean, people who have run, you know, college or high school, they know the feeling, you know, but I didn't, you know, so. And I was dreaming about how it would go. And yeah, I mean, it's such a rush, you know, and I mean, you go out, you know, for me, it's, you know, pretty fast, you know, like 5:30, 5:45 pace. And I'm all the way in the back, you know, it's just like, it's not even funny. You know, I mean, there's people going so much faster. And
600 people.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, what was the fascinating thing about that is, I mean, I was unfortunately able to catch a lot of people, but there were so many people in the back, and I could see their age in the back, so many wearing like 50, 55. How are these guys running this fast? And obviously, well, these are the fastest masters runners in the country. This is a national championship. And I said, oh, okay, yeah. That makes sense. So it was such a rush to get beat by so many guys in their 50s. I said, unbelievable how fast these guys are.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And
That's awesome.
you're a journalist, am I right in saying?
Well, I was. Now I'm by trade. I'm on the public relations, marketing, communication side of the world. But for about 20 years, I was a journalist. Yes.
Have you ever? I would just wonder whether you'd ever thought of combining that skill set with your passion for running and writing about running in some way. Is that something you've done or considered to do? Or
I have not done it, but yes, in the past I had considered. At some point, I think I actually applied for a job at Runner's World.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the magazine, and I don't know what happened to that, or maybe it was Running Times when it still existed. I actually liked Running Times better before it disappeared, because it was more for competitive runners personally. But yes, to answer your question, yes, I think that would be, and maybe I'm not fully done with that goal yet. There's a chance at some point to do some kind of writing portion or writing aspect of running in my experience.
Yeah. So my question, we're kind of getting towards the end of this, and I'm just thinking, let's get a real burner in here. So if you were going to pick a subject to write about, combining those two skills, what would it be? What would be the one thing that you would want to message, you would want to get across to the running public out there, or to people who, again, taking your example, it's never too late to start. But where would you throw your subject?
Yeah, I think I would go a little bit what you just alluded there, that it's not only just never too late to start, but never too late to really, find ways to push yourself. We didn't talk about this much, but I never thought in my life that I would reach this kind of level. I never. I mean, especially going back to that first marathon that I was training in Arizona, where I was just going to do one and, have that tale to tell my grandchildren. It was a lot slower, running the days. It was 3:52. That was my first marathon. And I know to like recreational runners or people who are trying to get better out there, running your first one under 4 is still pretty decent. But I mean, to me back then, I had no idea. So I think the angle would be that, yeah, I mean, the body is an unbelievable machine. And I'm not even built like the typical runners, I mean, I lift, and I've always lifted, and I'm never going to stop lifting. And I think that has helped me. But these guys that I run with, they're the traditional, stereotypical toothpick runners, right?
Yes.
I mean, they're like skinny, I mean, they weigh like 130 pounds, I mean, I got like 30, 40 pounds on these guys, I'm like an American football player next to them, and so I say that to say that, I mean, it doesn't matter, I mean, yes, obviously there are limitations, but I mean, the body can be pushed to incredible types of levels, I mean, obviously ultra runners, know this better than anybody else, but again, yeah, I mean, it wasn't until about 10 years into it that I started, daring myself to try to go with faster guys and just to even keep up with them. And these days I'm beating most of them, to realize that you can actually go for those kind of goals. You may not get there, but don't stop yourself from actually giving it a try.
Yeah, that would be an inspirational subject matter. You get writing.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I love, because like I didn't start snowboarding till I was in my 20s.
Oh, wow.
Nowadays it's late, nowadays they have like 14-year-old kids doing triple corks. I mean, granted, I was in a different time of the sport too. You could still get away with that, but yeah, it's never too late. And it's like I'm down here in New Zealand and they're doing selection for their winter snowboard team. And one of my girlfriend's daughters didn't end up getting on, and she's only 14, and they're just like, she's not podium potential. No, dropped her. Like, wow. Kid, heartbroken, mom, heartbroken. They changed their lives to go on this like pathway. And then just like this group of guys are just like, no, you're out. And I'm just like, how can they how can they really assess the potential of a 14-year-old for podiuming 8 years from now, you know? So it's like, yeah, I could never give up on your potential, even if someone tells you to. And people just shouldn't be making assumptions at what people can do, you know? It's like that really kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Fully agree with that. Yeah, that's a real shame, you know. But I mean, but one thing that I think people should take into account is that it's not going to come necessarily easy. You know, I mean, there's a few
of course
that are very genetically gifted people. You know, I'm not one of them. You know, I am not at all. You know, everything that I've achieved has been through really hard ass work. You know, and anybody that I'm coaching, you know, they're trying to get a higher level. You know, a couple of folks, you know, trying to break 3 hours for the first time. I'm telling them it's going to be probably the hardest work you've ever done. But if you're willing to put in that work, we're going to reap some kind of benefit for sure.
Yeah. On top of carrying over your everyday, like, pay the bills life, right?
Yes. Exactly. Yeah,
let's not forget about that. Let's not forget about that.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, there's definitely some material there, isn't there? And it's great. I've really enjoyed actually listening to what you've been saying. I just find it quite inspirational that you've got that determination and the joy with it. There's that mixture of, you know, you don't have to be so sort of focused, so myopic that you can't overlook the pleasure and the passion of what you're doing. Sometimes I've seen that with some of my clients. You know, sometimes I wonder, are they actually getting any pleasure out of this?
Yeah.
And so that's the other chapter in the book. So I don't. We need to discuss terms on this, the book rights. You know, Katie and I aren't greedy. You know, a small percentage for inspiring you to write this book.
just a little bit, yeah.
So thank you so much for your time, for what for me is this evening, and for Katie is this morning, and for you is what, this afternoon?
Yes. Yeah.
So we usually sign off along those lines. I don't know whether you know this, Katie. I started doing this on our first one where I said it's good night from me, good night from Katie, and good afternoon. There's a couple of old comedians in the UK here called the Two Ronnies. They always used to finish their show by saying, so it's good night from him and it's good night from me. So can we get ready to do that in a minute? So Katie's going to sign us off with a little, her normal way. Katie, fire away. What's it going to be?
Thank you, Hernan, for joining us tonight on this awesome podcast with you, talking about your great running career. And all of you guys out there who are listening, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you can hear beautiful Stuart and I every week with amazing guests like Hernan. And Stuart?
I'm going to say it's good night from me.
I'm going to say good morning from New Zealand.
I said good afternoon here from San Antonio. It was a pleasure being on here and being able to talk to you guys today.
Thank you so much, Anna. Awesome. It's really a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you, everyone. You've been listening to the Born to Be Barefoot podcast with myself, Katie Tsuyuki, and the wonderful Stuart Gordon. Please remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star review. We'll see you guys next week.